am being joined, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time here on set by Comrade John Ba Akoro, and he is here so we can do justice on this subject. Good to have you, sir.
Nice being on your set, Chris. It's my pleasure, and I'd like to take this opportunity to extend hearty regards to the people of the Southern Cameroons, to the people of Ambazonia, and I really want to, congratulate all our people, especially those on Ground Zero, for continuing to hold very tight, for continuing to hold the front lines. I also want to extend special regards to those in the diaspora who have refused to, stand on the sidelines and watch how our people are being decimated. Those who have decided that they will be in the independence train all the way onto that great day where we will scream with very loud voices, free, 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 at last we are free. Because like it or not, Chris, for some who don't know it, we are definitely going to be free. Despite the machinations of the French and all of that, we are already so used to all those antics. And as we're going ahead in our discussion on this slot, I'm convinced that people will get more and more information to comfort them to the extent and effect that France is in a very bad shape in international politics right now, and that is why they will be so anxious to get something you will call a patched up affair. But that is definitely not going to work. The Southern Cameroonians, aka Ambazonians of today, are not those of 1961. And I guess that the French should already be very well aware of this. So I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for your invitation.
Thank you for coming on, comrade. Professor Anyangwe was also supposed to be part of this. Unfortunately, he's got some technical issues, but he was supposed to be joining by way of audio. I don't know whether he is hearing us. Prof, if you can hear us, just make a signal over there. We will be able to hear your voice here. If we cannot see you, we can hear your voice if you are listening. But John, let me get back to you. There has been this concerted effort by La République du Cameroon, not for 6 months, not for 1 year, for at least 3 years now. Efforts to try to brainwash the population to believing that finally normalcy is coming back. Finally, normalcy is coming back. But this normalcy continues to elude them. I don't know. What are you sampling from the people on the ground? Do they believe in this Cameroon's normalcy before we get to the French subject?
If I talk to 10 people on the ground, 8 out of those 10 people remind me every day that we will stop at nothing short of independence. And this should tell you very clearly where we are. The people on the ground have had one concern, and they continue to have that concern over time. And I've taken time off to explain to our people on the ground why this concern is recurrent. The concern they have is about kidnapping for ransom, and I tell them what I've repeated on my platform over and over, that 80% of those who are kidnapping for ransom are really not those people fighting for the freedom of Amazonia. Well above 80%. You will recall, Comrade Chrisanu, somewhere in 2018, I think I had a telephone conversation with you before I actually went on the air to talk about this. That there was a meeting held that was in 2000 and towards the end of 2018 at the residence of the former forestry minister Tany Mbianyo Clarkson at Elever in Yaoundé. At that meeting, they agreed because they were fighting over the prime ministership and not Young was the prime minister, and they were frustrated that the bulk of the fighting was in the southern zone. And they agreed that they were going to hire people, some from Nigeria, others will be taken out of prison from everywhere and send them to the northern zone and cause them to go out there and commit serious exactions on the population because they needed to show that they needed to do extreme brutality on the population to achieve two things. Number one, show that the fighting was not only in the southern zone as they were fighting to take back the prime ministership. Number two, they needed to turn the people against their own very aspiration. And so, therefore, you have noticed that in a lot of instances, when they have actually traced the numbers of those who are actually carrying out this kidnapping for ransom, it ends up that most of the time, the accomplices are soldiers of La République du Cameroon. So this kidnapping for ransom thing, and I mean, it's actually meant to cause the people a lot of pain so that the people begin to say that it is better to remain with La République du Cameroon if this is what they will get with
Right,
independence.
right,
Unfortunately for them, with the so much education that we have conducted out there, and don't forget that John Frundi of blessed memory also said several times that a lot of the members of the CPDM crime syndicate have their own set of Amber Boys in quotes, whose role is to exact serious pain on the population to come back and tell them that you see, these are very bad boys, they are not our boys. This thing of independence is a very bad thing. Let us stay where we are. This is a major campaign we should carry out and continue to press with our people to recognize this. Fortunately enough, there are a lot of moves being taken here and there to begin to capture and identify most of these kidnappers because they are really not people involved in our liberation movement. We have seen a lot of videos of them on display. They
right,
are not of us. They are actually, it is actually still a strategy by France through La République du Cameroun to discourage the people from fighting for what they stand for and for what they believe in. There is no such thing as normalcy. It doesn't exist. If there was normalcy, nobody will need to tell you that there is normalcy. They will not be struggling every time to say, let's at all costs for Women's Day. They were doing everything. They wanted to stage a big demonstration in Bamenda. You and I saw what happened.
right,
It's a struggle they have taken over the years. For 8 years, they've tried this same thing. Don't forget, Chris, La République du Cameroun is a system that lives and thrives in make believe. They never live in the real world. So don't expect them at any time to talk about real things and real situations. They live in an imaginary world where all problems are solved by presidential decree and by hallelujah to Mr. Paul Biya.
right. Let's get back to this French subject. The French ambassador drive to Bamenda. Now, I have learned from somebody who was invited to that meeting that it wasn't only the French ambassador who was there, the Belgian ambassador was there, the German ambassador was there, the EU ambassador was there, then the Italian ambassador, they were all in company. They descend on Bamenda and tell the population they shouldn't worry. In the few months to come, there will be a resolution to the conflict and peace will return. I don't know. I would like to have your take on what you see there. To me, I have said I see it as a ploy for them to try to placate our people to come around, carry out their elections, and then after that, everything goes back to normalcy. But more to there is more to that. But I'd like to get your take on what you interpret out of it.
Chris, I know I have told the people of the Southern Cameroon several times, and I will repeat it even right here. France is the diplomatic powerhouse of the world. Make no mistake about that. France is the diplomatic powerhouse of the world. The French know one big thing. It is how to mobilize other people, other states to think that they are fighting a general cause, whereas they are fighting their cause. You see what is happening? The French of their own have really scarcely won any war after Napoleon Bonaparte. They found themselves in very murky and very difficult situations. And each time they are caught up in a very complicated situation, what they simply do is federate other nations to believe that they all face an existential problem if they, the French, lose their possessions. So, what is happening right now is France had generally used the presence of the United States of America as an ally to impose their will on the African continent. But today, France has lost Mali, they have lost Burkina Faso, they have lost Niger. Of course, Guinea had long left. Now they are noticing that Central African Republic is about three-quarter gone. They see that Chad is on its way. They tell themselves the situation in Cameroon is very dicey because Cameroon is locked in the Gulf of Guinea. And so, with the world order now seriously in question or seriously being likely redesigned, the French are now telling the European Union, the partners of the European Union, that if we make an error and France loses out in Cameroon, they must do everything to keep us within their column because Western Europe is now facing an existential problem. So that is what is on the table. If the people of the southern Cameroons get fooled at this point in time, then we want to be fooled. Because this is who the French are. Don't forget, the French have never pretended that they are our friends. They have never pretended. The French have always been very clear that they will stand against anything Ambazonia. Let's go down a bit quickly, down memory lane. One, in 1961, not only did France vote against independence for Ambazonia on the 21st of April 1961, but the French mobilized all their colonies in Africa to vote against independence for southern Cameroons. Mali was the only country that decided to break away from the French. So France mobilized every country, including La République du Cameroun, with which we were achieving independence to join to vote against independence for the southern Cameroons. Don't forget also that it was the French, because of the discovery of oil in southern Cameroons, who insisted on with Amadou Ahijo to hasten the end of the federal system to give them unfettered access to our land. So the French, even during sessions with the European Union, during this conflict, when they wanted to talk about sending intervention or showing greater presence with the situation between the southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroun, a French representative made clear at that session that she felt they were being so unfair to Mr. Paul Biya and his regime, so unfair for all the efforts that La République have been putting in to make sure that the people of the southern Cameroons are comfortable, and that we were even having
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, France has inserted itself into the Amazonian conflict.
more than our fair share of better treatment than we should even have deserved. The French representative never minks words saying that. Don't also forget, on the 2nd of February 2019, I had an outing, and that is still on my YouTube channel, the JMA Connection, for anyone to go refer to. 2nd of February 2019. I had information right from the presidency in Yaoundé that the French were going to come in to try and distract us in the name of mediation through the Swiss. That was long before the Swiss came in. There are too many things that the French have done to try and frustrate our liberation movement. So when you see France now come today and put it in your head, Chris, France is party to this war.
Of course.
Is not an observer. It's not just a foreign nation. France is a party to this war
Yeah.
because this war in Amazonia is actually a French proxy war being fought by La République du Cameroun. Once you already know, therefore, that the war that we are facing, the genocide in Amazonia, is a French proxy genocide exercise, then you should understand that nothing good can ever come out of France. I like to refer you to the tweets by our good friend Honorable Tibonagi, who pointed out several times that if what is happening to the people of the southern Cameroons were happening, just 100 of it were happening to the people of Quebec in Canada, the French would be on every rooftop screaming. That's because they consider the Quebecois human beings.
Yeah.
But the French see the people of Amazonia as either subhumans or animals that only need to be treated as slaves. So, to your point, very clearly, nothing good, nothing at all should be expected from France. Anyone going to sit in any peace talks or anything championed by France, you are simply insane. Rather than going to sit for anything that is peace talks or whatever championed by France, just surrender. Because that is another word for total surrender. The French today are faced with an existential crisis with their presence on the international scene. So they will mobilize, bring people from the European Union, bring people from there and there to parade before us a mirage, to have that feeling that everyone is against us. If we don't accept what is on offer, we are going to have it very rough. Make no mistake, the international order is about to change. And the French know that it will change and it will not favor them.
Well, I think it is
They will
already
enter
changing for as long as
before us
the
a
French.
mirage.
I think it is already changes. It is already changing for as long as the French are concerned. Because look at Africa. How many countries have kicked out the French army? The Ivorians have. The Senegalese have. Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea. They are kicking out the French, and I think the French should be very worried that if they do not support Ambazonia, if they do not support Ambazonia, they are also going to lose in Cameroon, because Cameroon offers them basically nothing. Their breadbasket in Cameroon is Ambazonia. And
You made a mistake there, Chris.
okay,
I just want to jump in very quickly. Don't say that the French thought that if they don't support Ambazonia, the French are not supporting Ambazonia.
of course
Will
we know
not
that,
support
yeah, but they can
Ambazonia.
change their mind,
Will
right?
never support Ambazonia. Yes. The French can only come in to create illusions in the minds of southern Cameroonians so as to keep them under La République du Cameroun so they can continue to have unfettered access to our resources. That is all the French want. The French know clearly that the day we have completely kicked La République du Cameroun out of our land, for them to have access to our resources, they will have to do fair deals, clear deals. But from La République du Cameroun, they own, they take it. Nothing for the owners. That's why the people of Ntian, from where oil is coming out, they have no road to lead to their, to the headquarters of that
Of
county.
where the oil
You can't get
is.
to Mundemba. You can't get to Ekondo Titi. La République's figurehead prime minister, John Bute Joseph, can't even get to his village of Gogongo very easily from Kumba. This is the truth. So the French can never ever help or stand for Ambazonia. Never dream it. Cancel those words. In relation to France, look at it always as poison. So if the French stand ahead of anything, shake your shoulder and move on. This has to be very clear to our people.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely on point there. Uh, the question is, where have the French been? Now, do not forget, suddenly they show up and they want us to believe they now care for Ambazonians, and they are doing everything to see that peace returns. But they forget to remember that the weapons that Cameroon is using to kill our people, slaughter our people, they supplied it. They are providing Cameroon with the money that Cameroon is using to fund this war. I don't know. How do they think that we can believe in what they are saying?
Chris, I know you recall I did a show on the JMA Connections in which I talked about, I produced a very secret document from the Betty clan, which talked about what they call la stratégie de conservation du pouvoir. And in that document, they talked about their stranglehold on the southern Cameroons. And they mentioned clearly, it was written in bold, that they have the French support 100%. They can do anything in the southern Cameroons and they have the French backing. I'll give you evidence. When the United States of America in 2019, and that was during President Trump's reign, President Trump's first term,
Yeah.
decided and forced through that the situation in the southern Cameroons needed to be discussed at least at the UN Security Council. You recall who opposed? Who
The
do you recall? Who
French.
opposed the most? France. And when finally they pushed it in through the Ariel system, you recall who watered down, who struggled to water down everything? France.
Right.
So the French dangled the possibility of pulling out their veto if the Americans push through to have the situation in the southern Cameroons discussed as a standalone item at the UN Security Council with a resolution. So it must be clear, therefore, to all Ambazonians, the French are the real enemy. Don't ask the question, where have the French been? The French have never hidden. They have been in plain sight. They have been operating and acting in plain sight, clearly ensuring that our people are crushed. We have the French, they even have people in Yaoundé who are working with them round the clock to ensure that Ambazonians are killed in droves, in many numbers. The policy that La République du Cameroon is using in Ambazonia, burning down houses, carrying out collective punishment, is a French policy. The Scotch policy is a
Yeah.
French policy. It's
Yeah.
with advice from France. When we scream, they say ICC, this and that. The Cameroonians tell you, how will you pass to take them to the International Criminal Court with France there? So La République du Cameroon has never pretended that they can carry out all kind of evil exactions, roast people alive in the southern Cameroons, and go with it because France, on whose behalf they are fighting, has the veto power at the UN Security Council. Will cover their tracks. Will be there to make sure nothing ever happens to them, to any of them. You see the things that La République du Cameroon is doing in Ambazonia. They are worse than what the Russians are doing on the Ukrainians. But you see the French shouting on every rooftop, mobilizing people to push back Russia, but at the same time providing all the weaponry possible for La République du Cameroon to crush the people of Ambazonia. How do you call that? So I like our people to know. They should bear this in mind always. The French are responsible for our predicament. They are responsible for our predicament. It is the French who in 1992 gave backing to La République's government to make sure Mr. Frundi, who won the presidential election, should never be president.
Yeah.
So the French don't make any mystery about it. While in Canada, they do everything to ensure that power rotation and power alternation takes place between English-speaking Canada and French-speaking Canada, which is Quebec. And what do Quebecois represent in the Canadian population? A much tinier fraction than the people of the southern Cameroons represent in the conglomeration with La République du Cameroun. How many times have there been referendum or referenda in Canada for independence?
Right.
At least twice. Pushed by the French. Pushed by the French.
Yeah.
And each time the people have refused to be independent because of the way they are treated by the majority English speaking Canadians. But the French cannot extend that to you. They cannot accept that you should have that free and fair referendum organized in the southern Cameroons because they know what medicine is being served to the people of the southern Cameroons. Because they consider even that the people of the southern Cameroons are not human beings, that we are only fit enough to be slaves. So, one thing our people therefore should listen. Anyone sitting in any meeting with the French, commandeering it to discuss the Southern Cameroons, has no business to do with the Southern Cameroons. You don't have the interests of the people of the Southern Cameroons at heart because you can't be a party and a judge at the same time. That doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has never
Yeah.
happened. The one thing our people need to bear in mind, especially us in the diaspora, we need to continue to support our people on ground zero to continue to resist. The will of the people must come to pass. That is why every now and then I'm enthused with the calls I get from the civilian population because they make clear that this is all the way to the end. How many times do you have to come back here to remind people that Monday is the traditional ghost town? You don't need to. La République du Cameroon has deployed all sorts of strategies to kill
Right.
it because that is the most visible form of civilian resistance. It hasn't worked. This is because over 98% of our people want absolute independence. Comrade Chris, never forget to reference the survey conducted by the late venerated Christian Cardinal Toomey on ground zero, because that survey did not involve people in the diaspora, at which 69% of the population wrote it. They didn't just tick it because it was not up for ticking, wrote it that what they want is absolute independence. This message must be sent to France in very clear terms, and our people must be sensitized enough to understand that our real enemy is not just La République du Cameroon. Our real enemy is France. La République du Cameroon is fighting a French proxy war.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is what I try to do here every day, letting our people know, hey, don't just get excited when you see people like the French coming in to say, we are now behind you, we are now trying to help you. It's about a decade now that they were supposed to help. They didn't help. They supplied the tools in which they use in the, slaughtering our people. But I like us to look at one angle in what the French are planning. Let us agree for a moment that in fact they are doing something behind in the background. Let's look at the situation uh, where the French gather some federalists, possibly some of those in prison, some of those leaders in prison, maybe promise them some positions in a federal republic of Cameroon of 20 states or 10 states or 15 states, whatever, and they emerge from there saying, uh, no, let me hold on to that. What do you think of that scenario? Do you think it holds water where they handpick a few federalists or some people like maybe the couple Daniels from Bazonia and get them sit on the table as independentists and they come up with a ceasefire and a release of prisoners and a promise of position to some prisoners, and then they say finally the peace is solved. Do you think that holds water?
Let me tell you something. There are two scenarios here. The first scenario is one, they try that kind of attempt, gather some people, like you're saying, and the people come out and say, okay, this is what we have agreed, this is what we're bringing to you, this is what we are bringing to you. It will end like the Grand National monologue. I'll tell you why. Did they not have Southern Cameroonians in the hall there? Have you
Yeah,
forgotten that the chairperson of what they call the decentralization committee was Mr. Ngole Philip Ngwese, who is now the High Commissioner to Canada? Ngole Philip Ngwese. They were English speaking. They had a lot of our people there, and they said, "We are giving special status." Now, the first question that you ask, because I saw Barrister Agbobala asking the same question, but where is the special status? Let me tell you, the French will never ever give you anything, because when I use give, it's an abusive language. There's not supposed to be giving and all of this. They will never ever do anything for you which is in your interest. That one will never happen. So take that from me. And so what the French would likely do in that kind of case is just gather that kind of group of people, ask them to make declarations, and they say that these people have now declared any person who was not among these people does not speak on behalf of the people of
right,
the Southern
right,
Cameroons. Any further actions by these people will be regarded as terrorist actions, and will Christian this people a band of terrorists, and will deal with them accordingly.
right.
Let me tell you, that they have tried that in other places, it hasn't worked. They tried that before. That's how they did with the Bamileke people, the era of the Maquisards. It did not work, because the truth is, as long as the people want what they want and stay by what they want, you are definitely not going to get success. This is very clear. And then you're talking ceasefire. How do people who keep saying that they don't want fire, they have never ignited fire, cease fire? Which fire are they seizing? Which fire would they be seizing? Because I like to know. Those so-called federalists that you talk about, and all those members of the CPDM crime syndicate that they will gather to come and say they are declaring a ceasefire. Which fire are they seizing? Because they are not fighting. So if you are not fighting, which fire are you seizing? So I think that the French forget that in the era of globalization, especially globalization of communication, where the social media is today even much faster in communicating than the traditional media, it will be very complicated to stage such an act and go away with it. The French have an arduous task. They should first of all begin by solving the succession problem in La République du Cameroon, because even that one is going to be more than them. They themselves have observed that it's going to be absolutely more than them.
But I want us to look at this, comrade. Look at this. If the French succeed to bring in the European Union, uh, yeah, the European Union, that is Germany, Belgium, Italy, Spain, into any agreement they reach with the proxies and the apologies, they succeed to gather together in the name of a peace conference. The danger there is the US may just say, okay, you guys in the diaspora, go and listen to what your brothers have decided. There have been a peace agreement. We can no longer support you sitting in the diaspora and trying to destabilize a country or a government. Don't you think that is dangerous on our part? I think we lost Comrade John. I think he is frozen. I hope that he will quickly get back on the line. Let's see. Let's hope that he gets back and the lines are good on at his end. So, but ladies and gentlemen, because we have to look at this scenario very critically if you are an independent seeking Amazonian. And we have to think and strategize with the knowledge that we gain out of this. The French will go gather the European Union. Okay, I think John is back. So, comrade, I was making a point here. Consider this situation where the French gather the European Union, that is the Belgians, the Germans, the Italians, the Spanish, and all of the composition that is the European Union, and get their support, and they sit down in maybe in Boya or in Douala, Yaoundé, or Bamenda, and come up with a resolution that calls for a ceasefire with these our other comrades on the table. Now, my fear is you have a situation where in the diaspora, governments like the USA can say, well, we can no longer allow you to sit here and destabilize a country or a government because there has been a peace settlement. And you know the ability of the French to prevail on the Americans. We all know this game is a game of interest, the sphere of interest and of influence. And America knows Cameroon is a sphere of influence for the French. Don't you see that danger there?
No, I think you are making it sound so easy. It's not as easy as it sounds. Let me draw your attention to this. Don't forget that France's sphere of influence in Africa is today being attacked by other actors. It will no longer be just an affair of the European Union. When Niger was going, France had the ear of the American government. Of course, France had the ears of President Joe Biden. But you notice that the American government refused to intervene. The American government refused to intervene. They observed. The French did everything, mobilized ECOWAS, did all kind of things, played all kind of parade charades in all corners and all whatnot. use ECOWAS to give ultimatum upon all of that. It did not work. It did not work. Why didn't it work? Because the American government had learned its lesson from what happened in Libya. The American government had learned its lesson from what happened in Cote d'Ivoire with Laurent Gbagbo. And so the French can no longer take the American government for a ride. And don't forget, despite all the screaming and the shouting and all of those things, whether the French like it or not, the global order is changing. It's no longer possible for France to stage those kind of things. I want to be very clear here to our people. Let's not create a monstrous image in our minds, and we base our attention on watching this monstrous image, and and getting frightened. Even among those European nations, there are nations that know and recognize the challenges the people of the Southern Cameroons are facing. They recognize the difficulties the people of the Southern Cameroons are facing with La République du Cameroon. Don't forget the Italian government had reminded the French that they were living off of Africa.
Right.
Look at the actions and positions of the Italian government, even vis-a-vis the situation in Ukraine, even in a dire situation like this one. It tells you the Italians will not just be dragged into anything like that by the nose. So I want to let our people understand. The Americans were there when Burkina Faso kicked France out. The Americans were there when Mali kicked France out. The Americans were even also there. The Americans were even present in Niger when the people of Niger kicked France out. And the American troops that were there have either totally been withdrawn or have been totally withdrawn. So one thing we should be clear about is that today, more than ever before, the Americans know that they cannot let the French pull them by the nostril. And so international relations today are being redefined. That thing you call spheres of influence are being redefined. So there are a lot of things, there's a lot of mutation going on in the international scene. And this is the time more than ever before for the people of the Southern Cameroons to make our case, to show strength, to make our case very clearly. And this will be a defining moment in our quest for freedom. This is a better, not a bad moment for us. Making this moment a better moment for us depends on us. Making it a bad moment for us depends on us. If we continue to stand on the fence and tell some people that, oh, that your Ambazonia, don't come and talk to me about it, that your thing, let me be clear here, Chris, Comrade Chris. Let me be very clear to you. You see, a lot of people in this liberation movement who were diehards are facing choices either to stay supporting the liberation movement or withdrawing because they say the same people that they thought were fighting for our freedom are targeting their families. This should tell people who these people are. Because you notice once they identify that you are a key supporter of the Southern Cameroon movement, you are based in the diaspora, they send people to go kidnap your family and ask for heavy ransoms.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you think that is Amber Boys. No, it's not Amber Boys. These are people who are controlled by people like Fu Jonathan Mojengni, who are controlled by Atanga Ponji, who are controlled by Fortabe Tando, by all of those people. Those members of the CPDM crime syndicate are the ones controlling those people. And so to make sure that you and I turn our attention from what we really believe in, from the freedom we seek, they make sure they bring pain upon us and give us the impression that that pain that we are feeling is inflicted upon us by the same people who are supposed to be fighting to free our land. This is a dynamic that we might not have communicated on so much for our people to take note of. But it is a very important dynamic our people must know. All of these are French tactics. These are all French strategies. Some of our people are falling for it. If we really say we want freedom, we want to stand for this freedom all the way to the end, we have to bear this in mind. If you are not touched, you see, they identify them. Look at what happens, even on ground zero, they identify, but they suspect. If they suspect that you may have some light sympathy for the independence of the people of the southern Cameroons. People will come and kidnap you. You look at what happened to Justin Chang in Bamenda lately.
Yeah.
They will tell you that there were amber boys who were kidnapped, but he had been living downtown. The question in the minds of La République du Cameroon and the CPDM, members of the CPDM crime syndicate was, why is he living downtown freely? If he's living downtown freely, when most of them are hiding up station and Kale come down in armored cars, it means he is a supporter of the cause. It means he is supporting the boys. It means the boys know him. So they have to send people to go and capture him. So that it turns out that, you see, the boys have wounded him. Whereas it's nothing about that. Our people don't target our people. Our people are focused on seeking independence for our land. I am with the civil society. I work relentlessly with foot soldiers who go from community to community, building bridges between the self-defense forces and the civilian population to ensure that we minimize losses in terms of civilians. Why? Because we understand from the civil society viewpoint that where there is discord, a lot of our civilian population die for nothing, die in crossfire for nothing. They are set up either by dubious elites who want to use them to achieve some aims and have political appointments, or set up by those who want to maintain their positions, or set up by those who want to get an ascendancy. So we make sure we build them to understand that don't get involved. When two elephants are fighting, don't transform yourself into the grass. And the local people come back to us with vital information that informs us to the effect that they themselves are realizing that a lot of these kidnappers are not people working for our liberation movement. And
I
this
like
is a
us
thing.
to, yeah, I like us to look at one angle to this potential mediation by the French. I don't know what you make of, recently we have seen Capo Daniel and a certain APAJ, Alliance is it for Peace and Justice, emerge with groups from every nook and corner, but groups that you cannot even recognize who they are, where they are coming from. You also saw, I guess, recently Milan Atam coming up with these caucuses of independentists and federalists. What do you make of what you see? Do you because I am kind of having actually some people have brought this to my attention that these groups are not unconnected to what the French are trying to do on the ground. I don't know, what is your take on these groups and what you think they are out for?
Uh, Comrade Chris, in every situation like the one we are locked in, you always have opportunists. And don't forget, the way the French have always operated is they operate with people from within that they try to use from within to implode
Yeah.
any form of resistance. And so I really don't want to get in any name calling. Long story short, our people know who their shepherds are, and the shepherds know their people. I suppose very clearly that the people of the southern Cameroons today are so sensitized, so educated on our situation that not any Tom, Dick, or Harry can easily carry them sway. You may have a few who get confused, but before the sun goes down, they will meet one or two others who will bring them back to the fold by quiet education. The job for our liberation movement was not done today. I think La République du Cameroon and France get misguided when they think that this whole movement started in 2016. It did not start in 2016. Long before 2016, there had been some quiet sensitization ongoing by the SCNC, who understood the need to do calm mobilization. And, Pam Fongalamfo, Dr. Fongalamfo, wrote too many articles on daily basis that pushed the sales for English language newspapers. Don't forget, I was publisher of the Times Journal. And the Guardian Post, they may once in a while, shift in the other angle because they're looking for money. But the
Yeah, yeah, they
Guardian
always
Post did
shift.
a
Not
great
even
job.
once in a while. I consider
Yeah,
the
but I
only
want to say
newspaper.
the Guardian Post did a great job for a long time before 2016,
Okay,
selling, educating the people on the situation in the southern Cameroons. When I started publishing, that was after the Guardian Post, we noticed that whenever the Guardian Post was published, it would get finished on the stands very fast. Why? Because on the cover page was always a story on the maltreatment of the people of the southern Cameroons. And so before long, most English language newspapers understood that that will be the story that sells. And so Pam Fongalanfo's articles were carried across the board. I recall at one point the Guardian Post actually ran a series entitled Cry the Anglophone Plight. And he ran that series for over 3 months. And you don't look at those things lightly. People were reading, photocopying, sharing. And before long, when the Times Journal joined, we intensified this. The Horizon came in and pushed it even further. There was The Voice, jumped in, and then eventually the Post, that was not paying too much attention to this in the interest of other stories, also realized it, and literally all the English language newspapers were now also making sure that focus on the cover page were stories relating to the plight of the people of the southern Cameroons. So in 2016, the southern Cameroons was already like a powder magazine. Someone just needed to strike the match. And of course, it came through the teachers and the lawyers, and then the formation of the consortium. And you have what you have today. So it's to tell you that at the core, the people did not just get up from nowhere and start supporting something they don't know. The people on the ground are far more educated about the plight of the people of the Southern Cameroons and the need for independence and absolute freedom than those who are in the diaspora. Because those who have been in the diaspora for over 10, 15 years will never know the realities of what was going on the ground. And that is why you see that despite all the antics that La République du Cameroon has used on the ground, the victimization, the collective punishment, the everything, our people on the ground are remaining strong. They are holding tight, they are holding firm because they, at the core, understand exactly what we are fighting for and the need to stand strong. And you recall when Honorable Wiba got to parliament, it was the end of 2016, he now used that platform to amplify this further. And the simple words he used have remained ingrained in the memories of the people today. So our people on ground zero are the true champions and heroes and leaders of this liberation movement. Take it from me.